So I get asked the same questions over and over again, what feels like 100 times a day. So maybe rather than just responding to people the best that I can, I'll do it this way, and then everyone can see the answers, and maybe we can help more people all at the same time. So you have questions, leave comments, and then as I see them, I'll try and save them, and we can keep doing this. All right, first question. This was on a sniper video. Is Sniper 2 better for boating? Blah, blah, blah. Nothing else really matters in this. So specifically for boating, I don't think there was any changes for the Sniper 2 that's gonna, be beneficial in that regard. However, they theoretically corrected a lot of the problems that the snipers had. So from a reliability standpoint, assuming that they fixed the issues correctly, it should be a lot better in that regard. But as of right now, the Sniper 2 actually does not have the ability to be tuned with a laptop. So with that being said, I will get on your boat and unbolt your Sniper 2 and throw it into the ocean until we can tune them with the laptop. All right, next is on why you should have a fuel pressure sensor video. My Holley EFI Holley pump was working and now it won't turn on. And Holley sent me a SD card and that does work either. So what would it be? Well, it was a little tough to make out. And this is one big problem. Like guys say that they call Holley for tech support and they're on hold for 3,000 hours. This isn't a Holley problem. This is a car problem. And you just have to troubleshoot it, man. Like set the fuel pump prime to as long as it'll go and get under your car, whatever, with a multimeter and see if there's battery voltage at the fuel pump. If there is, then likely your pump is bad. And if there isn't, then go back and see if there is a signal going to the fuel pump relay. And if there is, then the relay is probably bad. And just keep going backwards like that until you figure it out. I guess there's like a 1% chance that it could be the ECU not sending out the fuel pump signal, but I doubt it. It's almost always either the pump, a bad relay, or I guess the biggest and most common problem is just these wiring jobs that we see on a lot of these cars. Some of the wiring that I see on some of these fuel pumps, it's kind of amazing that more of these cars don't just burn to the ground. So make sure it's wired properly and go through the automotive diagnostic process and stop calling Holley for every single problem that you guys have. What do you recommend in the advanced parameters section of the V3? Well, that's about the most open-ended question you could probably ask. So I'm assuming you're talking about the advanced table section, in which case you can basically do whatever you want based off of whatever you want. So if you open up the advanced tables ICF and then go through the table types and see what you can offset, whether you want to do a temperature-based offset, fuel flow offset, boost offset. There's about 100 of them. And once you figure out what it is that you want to offset, then figure out if you want to do a 1D or a 2D table, and then choose your axes. You can do idle offsets, you can do flex fuel offsets. I mean, like I said, you can almost offset anything within the software based off of any two of the criteria that you wish, and then you can set up additional criteria as well. So there is no way to answer that question without knowing what it is that you actually want to do. Just because it's there doesn't mean that you have to use it, but it's probably one of the most powerful features that Holley EFI offers, is just having the ability to, like I said, offset anything based off of anything. Super helpful. All right, not too close, far away. Where did you get this switch? You can't find one. So this is kind of like a top secret website. A lot of people don't know about it, but if you go on Amazon.com, you can buy these switches. Nothing fancy or exciting about these, and I will put a link to the switches in the description, and it's affiliate link, so everybody buy one so I can make $3. All right, I get asked this one all the time. Do you have the ability to tune all-wheel drive? Technically, yes, but the answer is a hard no. I have two mainline Pro Hub dynos. The purpose of having two was to run two cars at the same time, two-wheel drive cars at the same time. Technically, they can link together and do all-wheel drive, but it's a huge pain in the ass setting up cars on an all-wheel drive hub dyno, especially when it's not needed. You're making 2,500 horsepower, sure. makes all the sense in the world. But for a little 300 horsepower car, all the time it takes, it's not worth it. I would say just, you know, find a all-wheel drive dyno jet or something local and hop on that. I had a all-wheel drive dyno pack before. Even when I had the all-wheel drive dyno, kind of like using it as an all-wheel drive dyno. Basically any car that's all-wheel drive that's worth putting on the dyno, you can almost always just drop a drive shaft and then run them two-wheel drive, and they run way better anyways. Exceptions kind of being WRXs and Evos, and I don't really feel like messing with any of those cars anyways. So the short answer is no. I am not going to do any all-wheel drive cars anytime soon. So sorry about that. His username is, I don't know why I do this shit. That's amazing. All right, this one is Holley EFI really self-tuning video, blah, blah, blah. Should I stick with my carburetor or use Holley? So funny you asked that. That's actually on my to-do list, is to make this video. It's a lot to switch over to the carburetor. God damn it. It's a lot to switch over to the fuel injection. If it was just a matter of unbolting the carb and then bolting the damn Holley thing on there, it wouldn't be so bad. But when you're changing fuel pumps and fuel lines, and then probably 96% of people, when they cut up all their fuel lines, they don't clean them, and then all the trash from the fuel lines ends up in the injectors, and then it clogs the injectors, and then Holley gets blamed for that. And there's like 4 wires that you have to hook up on a Sniper to make it work, but somehow you pop the hood, and then on most of these installs, there's 140 different wires, and I don't even understand how that's possible. I think the main question I would ask before I answered your question would be, why do you want to switch from a carburetor to fuel injection? We did a video not too long ago on a pro mod that they had all kinds of people trying to do the carb on this thing, and they couldn't get it right, wasted a bunch of time and money, so they switched to EFI, and it corrected all of the problems. And then obviously in the comments, everyone's like, carb's not set up right. Well, no shit. That's pretty obvious. But when they had all these different people running through it and nobody could get it right, it just made more sense to switch to something that was going to fix it. So like if your carb on your stuff currently doesn't run worth a damn, then rather than trying to get the carb straight, and maybe you don't have a good carb guy or whatever, then maybe fuel injection makes more sense at that point. But the second part of this is, can you recommend one of your videos that will help set it up? And I'm sure that's kind of just more like a general question than being specific, but let's assume it's specific for a second. If you think you're going to switch to EFI and you're going to watch one YouTube video and you're going to set it up and be, you know, running great and have no problems, then definitely stick with the carb. The fact that this stuff is all kind of sold as self-tuning, I think is not right. There's so much more to it. And even if it was self-tuning, they have the ability to tune one table, and there's 100 different tables in there. And if you're not taking advantage of all those different tables, then you just paid money for something and you're using a small fraction of what it's capable of. So if you are super interested in learning EFI and willing to spend the time and the effort and the energy and accept that there's going to be headaches and hiccups and hurdles along the way, then absolutely go EFI. But if you don't want to deal with any of that stuff, you already have a carb, I would probably stick with that. The second side of that is, me personally, if I was going to go through the hassle of converting a car from a carb to EFI, changing out all the fuel system and fuel lines and this, that, the other, I'd just go one step further. I'd send the intake out. I would have port injection installed, and then I'd go with the Terminator X, an HP, or a Dominator in the opposite order to that. If you can afford it, the Dominator is always the best option. The HP is a lot more kind of stout and robust than the Terminator X, but the Terminator X is far more inexpensive. So everybody's working on different budgets and has different goals and desires. You know, Dominator has 3,810 inputs and outputs, and a lot of guys, you know, don't even use up the 4 that a Terminator X has. But for me personally, if I'm going to switch over to EFI, I want to take advantage of all of the other stuff that EFI does, not just have it turn the fuel injectors on and off. Oh, this one's not even a question, it's just kind of humorous. I made a video on like 5 things to buy with your Holley EFI system, like fuel pressure sensor, cam blast splitter, just some additional things. And this guy says, so don't buy this one because it doesn't come with everything. Got it. So I always like it when people try to be a smartass and they just show how intelligent they are. These are EFI systems. They're basically infinitely adjustable. And why would it come with a flex fuel sensor? when not everyone's going to run flex fuel sensor? Or why would it come with boost control solenoids when not everyone is going to use those? So it comes with basically everything that you need to get it going, and there's additional stuff on top of that. So sky's the limit as far as what you can spend your money on. Got a question. Watch you tune a car with CO2 and dual MAC valves, and you mentioned the settings are different when not using CO2. So basically, if you're using like the compressor housing of the turbo rather than CO2, and I just finished my build, it won't make anything over 2 pounds. So no, I don't think that is your problem. Usually it's the exact opposite. CO2 is much easier to control, and when you try and use a compressor cover, usually it wants to overboost. So that's likely not your problem. But I kind of picked this question because I just finished filming like 4 or 5 different boost control videos over there. And in those videos, I mentioned how much I like CO2 over using the compressor housing for boost control, because the primary reason is when we're using the compressor cover, now our pressure source is actually a moving target. It's going to move with boost, and then the Holley is trying to only apply the amount of boost that is currently available. And there's just too much going on. It's a real pain in the ass. And by the time you tame everything down to actually work and not overshoot and go crazy, like all your PID values or stuff are so slow and so lazy that there's, I don't know, I feel like you kind of wiped out the advantage of using the dome pressure. So if we're not using CO2, my go-to is either a single 3-port or situation depending, a single 4-port. And then I will typically run them open loop, like a fixed duty cycle table. Well, maybe not necessarily fixed. You can still build your table out off of whatever criteria it is that you want. But at that point, we're just choosing a duty cycle, making the duty cycle be whatever it is that we want it to be based off of whatever we want it to be. And then it just runs that duty cycle. And then the boost is just rock solid all the time, and way better than the dome pressure setup without CO2. With HP and Dominator, you have the option for their map-based, dome-based control. It's like way more hard to set up. And then Terminator X V3 just came out with their dome boost setup, which is a lot easier to set up with the same concept, but it's still using dome pressure and 2 solenoids. And I get why they did it that way, but I would have really liked to see a single solenoid, closed loop control using like a feed forward table, using the actual map sensor for the closed loop control. I see absolutely why Holley doesn't do that, because then they're gonna have to hire 350 more tech support guys to answer all the questions that come along with that, because it can be a little tricky to set up sometimes. I don't know, you don't always get everything that you want. So if you're gonna use dome pressure control, use CO2 or onboard air, and if you're not, then I personally would recommend open loop and a single solenoid, and not everybody's gonna agree with me on that, and I don't care. All right, this one, I get these questions 150 times a day, and you can see this is like unanswerable. Blowing black smoke, turned plugs black, and flames and exhaust. What can I do to fix this? I don't even know where to begin to tell you to start on that. You're gonna need to troubleshoot like literally everything. And in that situation, your best option, honestly, given the way that was written out, I would say to reach out to a tuner or a shop and probably bring them the car, or maybe you can get a remote guy to help you out. But a lot of times those type of problems can be pretty difficult to diagnose in person. No, not in person, like remotely, unless they log into your computer and they see your air fuel's locked at 35-to-1 because your sensor's dead and your closed loop limits are all at 6 trillion%. So it's just run 15 milliseconds of injector pulse width at idle and all of that. But I mean, you could have installed it wrong, you could have the wrong sensor selected, you could have things hooked up backwards, like the sky is the limit. So when you ask these questions, try to be a little bit more specific on what's going on, and let me know what you've tried to fix on your own. You should always try and troubleshoot things yourself before kind of asking everyone else the questions, I guess. Thank you for this video. Kicking around the idea of going EFI. I'm wondering on your thoughts on reliability. I've seen posts where they die. So this kind of goes back to what I said on my other question, where if I was gonna do it, I would just go ahead and do port injection in one of the other ECUs. I've actually had extremely good luck with the Terminator. God damn, I'm stupid. With the snipers, basically it sounds stupid, but when they work, and when they don't, they don't. And an overwhelming majority of the time when they don't work, it's like self-inflicted injuries. We see guys that see that these systems have like RFI problems. So then they add, 150 ground wires, and they're grounding things to this, that, and the other, and they just make it 1,000% worse. The big one that I see all the time is the injectors getting clogged up from, guys were using a fuel tank that has 650 pounds of rust in it, and cutting up fuel lines, not properly cleaning the lines out. Guys, running Walmart fuel filters, and you name it, I've seen it. That's usually where most of the problems come from. I've seen a bunch of guys having issues where the injectors come unplugged, which they have updated with the Sniper 2. I've never run across that problem before. The RFI problems, all the cars that we've had here that have had that, the owners have been able to fix that by cleaning up the wiring. It's almost always a wiring problem or like a spark plug wire problem. And I have seen guys claiming that their ECUs go bad. Again, I've never seen that. So I understand some people have bad luck and things do happen, but when I have 100 of them come through the door and never have that problem, it makes you wonder what's going on. Again, it probably in some weird one way, shape or form is coming back to some sort of a wiring problem or a backfeeding problem. So I'm typically a little hesitant on some of what I choose to do with the Sniper stuff, just because once you tune a car, it seems like from that moment forward, if the brake light bulb goes out, it's the tune's fault. And I don't know, a lot of these, they're self-tuning. So Holley sells it as self-tuning. So therefore, kind of Holley is the tuner at that point. So then every problem kind of ends up back in their lap. And in some instances, maybe it's rightfully so, I don't know. All right, on a Sniper video. How does this system work with a rotary engine? You must really hate your life if you want to go down that road. I'm assuming that one was a joke. All right, last one. This is enough. I want to go home. It's hot in here. Oh, this is on a non-intercooled E85 turbo thing. Why no timing info? Is that a secret? Yes and no. I never put timing information, or very rarely put timing information in these videos, simply because everybody on YouTube is smarter than me and knows more than I do. So when you put, I don't know why, you can put target air fuel ratio stuff, no one really cares, but the minute you mention anything about timing, you get 4,000 comments in the comments section about everyone telling you how they're wrong, you're right, and how it's gonna blow up, or how it should have made another 300 horsepower, or this or that, and I don't like dealing with it. The other side of that is the timing it's not like a one value, so it's not like, oh, this combo has this, it's 14 degrees. It doesn't work like that. And then the other side of it is I don't want you guys using this timing value that I have in this car and then putting it in your car and then, pole vaulting the crankshaft when you drive down the road. On the dyno, here's a controlled environment. We can watch what's happening. One car might want 18 degrees and then the next car with all of the same parts might want 13 degrees. And you gotta work up to that, and there's precautions that you gotta take, to make sure that you stay alive. So that's why I don't really do much with timing, and there's a lot of tuners who really hate that anything tuning related is on YouTube. At the end of the day, this is how we all feed our family. Try and help out as much as I can within reason, but then there's certain things that you kind of got to leave out. You got to leave people, one, from a liability standpoint, you don't want everyone blaming you for what they tore up. And then two, like if you just give out all of the information, then none of us are gonna have jobs. And I know a lot of guys would be real happy to not have to pay anything to get the cartoon because you can just watch a couple of YouTube videos. But once that starts happening, then all the tuners go under, and then this whole industry as a whole will just fail miserably and die. And I don't think that's what anybody wants. So it might be on the extreme end of the spectrum there, but yeah, I don't know. The big part of it is just everybody knows everything. So I just spent like 5 minutes looking at some of the more recent questions that there were. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them. Don't leave a question that's like 14 paragraphs long. It's too much. I'm not reading all of that. So a couple sentences, nice, simple, broad questions. I'm more than happy to answer them, and kind of answer them in video format like this is way better. So, yep.